Okay, Jill, we are here, and I've got the big question. You worked with over 1,000 co-stars, so who is your favorite co-star?
Oh my gosh, it's so hard to pick one because there's over 1,000. And obviously, I loved working with you,
Of course.
but but also, God, I think Andy Warhol was pretty much a huge departure, but awesome. And Vivian Lee, not Vivian Lee, sorry. Olivia DeHavilland from Gone with the Wind was pretty awesome.
Amazing.
Um, Ethel Merman was pretty incredible. And my regular co-stars, my cast members, my fellow castmates were series regulars were my favorite and still are to this day.
From the heart of Hollywood, it's the Patrick Labyorteaux Show with Patrick Labyorteaux.
It's the Patrick Labyorteaux Show. Patrick Labyorteaux. He's the one you gotta know.
Tonight's episode, Jill Whelan.
Patrick Labyorteaux Show. He's the one you gotta know.
You know her as Vicki Stubing from 190 episodes of Love Boat, and I know her from trying to ruin her reputation. Please welcome Jill Whelan.
Get in line, Patrick. Get in line.
How are you, Jill?
I'm great. How are you? God, it's
I'm
great to see
wonderful.
you. It's been amazing that it's been, just such a short little time since we've seen each other. It's been more than a minute.
Right? So a little bit behind the curtain here for anyone that thinks that all Hollywood people are at a cocktail party every night before, they're on a podcast. Uh, we haven't actually seen each other or talked to each other since maybe the 80s, maybe at a
Maybe that,
celebrity event.
yeah, that probably is right. Maybe the 90s. I'm not really sure, but wow. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a pretty wild situation. And what's really cool is, yes, all kid actors at some point kind of know each other because we ran into each other. And of course, because of your situation on Love Boat, literally the entire Hollywood community came to you. So you're absolutely you know everybody. But I just had Glenn Scarpelli on the show, and we were talking
Oh,
about
my
you.
pal. My
He's
pal.
and
I
he
love
just he
him.
loves you so much. And
We
why
are
not?
very
You're
close to
sweet.
this day, we're very close. I just adore him. And, we worked so much together, not on Love Boat, but doing other things together, telethons with Sammy Davis Jr. and
Uh-huh.
um, Jerry Lewis and things like that. So we traveled a lot together and just got in so much trouble, but good trouble, not we were both very good kids, and our mothers were always there with
Yeah.
us. So we're really close.
I think that's really important to stress because also a misunderstanding is that, of course, the troubled kids get all the press because that's where all the clicks go.
Yeah.
And yeah, there were troubled kids, but they came from troubled families. I don't think
Yes.
it was so much the industry, but a lot of us were fine.
Yeah.
It was just fine.
Well, I always say that. I always say when people ask, how is it that I seem, haha, seem being the operative word, it's normal is because I say I think my mom never, well, first of all, I'm scared of her, um, and still am. But I think she never forgot what her role was, which was that of the parent, as opposed to
Right.
when you and I hear these stories that Danny Bonaducci would tell, Danny Bonaducci from the Partridge Family, when he would say, yeah, it was a really hard upbringing in the business of Hollywood because I would go home and my mother would try to discipline me and she'd tell me to go to my room and I'd say, which one? I own all of them.
Oh man, that
Yeah.
does not fly in my house or
Oh,
my mom's house.
well, I can tell you, I would never fly again if I said that ever. I ever. So I think you're absolutely right. I think that the business may attract those kind of families because they're looking for something other than just their kid doing what they're passionate about,
Right.
and that's when the trouble starts.
Act 1, Beginnings.
Well, let's start at the beginning because that's a great place to start for anything. I
Oh, we're
have a
quoting
weird.
Sound of Music now. Okay.
Exactly. I had this weird situation where I dated this girl from Northern California, from Livermore, and all she could talk about was Joe Whelan came from Livermore. What
What?
is the deal? Were you from Livermore?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
You've got to be kidding me. How long ago was that?
Oh, that was the '90s. Her mom worked forever at a place called Coteroli Ford, and then they
Yes,
moved to
yes.
the Bay Area, but, like, she was from Livermore, and
Wow.
Livermore is known for the Livermore Labs and my
Concannon wine,
ex-girlfriend and
Venti
you.
wine, and me. Oh, and me. Oh, great. Oh, and
And
we
you.
also had one of the first light bulbs, Edison light bulbs.
Oh,
That
that's right, it's the longest burning light bulb. It's still
cor-
burning, right, at a
I
firehouse?
I don't. Well, I mean, it was the last time I checked, and I was in my teens at that point. So God knows where it is now. But yeah, and now it's this. I was just told because I haven't been back forever. I was just told it's this bougie sort of wine destination now. So
It was always just far enough from San Francisco where, they keep pushing out the suburbs,
yep,
but it's beautiful up there. So tell
it
me,
is.
let's interview you instead of me.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
how do you get from Livermore, which is beautiful, but in the middle of nowhere, to Hollywood? And you were young.
I was. Well, I mean, I don't know about you, Pat, but me, I was always as a kid doing commercials in the mirror with toilet paper
Uh-huh.
holders or, whatever, putting on little plays in my living room with my friends. And I took, dance class and gymnastics and all of that stuff. And my mom was a preschool director in Pleasanton, which is the town next door. And in
Right.
the summers, she would try to take me to work, and it just didn't work well when she was teaching nursery school classes because I would try to take over her classes. And so she's like, this is so not going to work. What can I do with this kid? She's got a lot of energy. She's very creative. I know there is a community theater that's doing The King and I, and this would be good because there's a lot of kids in it. So it'll kind of be like she's in summer camp. So, all right,
Yeah.
I got to give this kid, what does she need? She needs to learn a song. All right, I'm going to call up the local music teacher. And the woman's name is Marie Cochran. She's still in Pleasanton, by the way, still teaching voice lessons. And she said, I don't take kids. My mom said, I'm not interested in giving her lessons. I just need somebody to teach her how to sing a song for an audition. She said, okay, I'll do that. And by the way, I'm playing Anna in that show. That's what the teacher said. She was playing Anna. So she gave me a song, and then she ended up telling my mom that she thought I had some musical talent, and yes, she would take me on. So she was my voice teacher as long as I was living in the Bay Area. But we are still dear friends to this day. And I got into the play. There
Uh-huh.
was one speaking part for a little girl other than the young prince. I got it.
Right.
It was one line, Princess Ying Yalak. And all those kids were doing commercials in San Francisco. And I thought that seemed like so much fun. So I asked them, how are you doing this? They said, well, it's easy. Here's our agent's name. You send your picture, your school picture into this agent. And I did. And the agent called my mother and said, I'd like to see your daughter. She goes, what do you know about my kid? She said, well, I have her school picture here and a letter. And
You
she
didn't tell
said,
your mom?
no, no. And my mom said, did you do this? I said, oh, that's right. That's me. I told you they'd call. So the woman, her name was Ann Brebner. She took me on, and that's how I started doing commercials up there. And then this same voice teacher, Marie, had a friend who lived in LA who was a
Uh-huh.
working actress. And she said, you got to do something with this kid. You got to show her to your agent or something. So this gal, Lainey, took me to her agent. He signed me. And one of the first things I did was an audition for the road company of Annie down at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was there with I auditioned with Marty Sharnon and the rest of the people from Annie. And there was a talent scout there from Aaron Spelling Productions looking to cast a new TV series called Friends, but it's obviously not the
Right.
Friends, the later Friends. Uh,
Right. Yeah,
and
I believe you were up from for Monica.
yeah, no, and I would be driving a much nicer car. So I they asked if I would audition for that, and I did, and I got both things, and I had to choose, and I'd always wanted to be on TV, so I chose to do this little series, and
Well,
because it was an
yeah, I
Aaron's,
mean, good call. I mean, Aaron
yeah,
Spelling kind of ran. It was called Aaron's Broadcast Company for a long time because
it
he
was,
basically had every show there. And I'm
he
looking at
did.
your IMDb, and it's like it. I was going to ask, was there a connection? because they're all Aaron Spelling shows, which they kind of
Yeah,
all were. But did you have a holding deal or something?
well, what happened was he wanted to sign me to an old Hollywood kind of deal, like a
Right.
studio contract. But my lawyer said, absolutely not. We're not doing that, or you won't be able to work for anybody else. So we didn't. But I did this pilot, and then it didn't go because it was against 60 Minutes. And back in those days, they didn't change time slots or try to figure out a different way. So it just didn't get the numbers against 60 Minutes, which has always been number
Right.
one on Sunday nights. So I went back home. My mom thought, well, thank God that's over with. Now I can get back to our normal life. And then oh, and I had guest starred as the character of Vicki on Love Boat, because as you know, Aaron, once you're in his vision, or if
Yeah.
you're on one of his shows, you guest star on all of his other shows,
Right.
um, which would explain my credits there, because and it was great.
We'll be back after these messages.
Hey there, my name is Patrick Labyorteaux, and I play an actor on TV. And I also have this acting school called Working Actors School. And what we do there is we teach people to act using Zoom. So you can take an acting class with me and with a person in Connecticut, in Florida, and San Diego all at the same time, thanks to the miracle of Zoom. And I'm very excited to announce that we have a brand new class called Adult Weekly Class. Now, what is that? Now, that's a class that'll meet every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, and you come in and you have an hour-long acting class with other students. It's very, very simple, very, very fun. So if you've ever wanted to be an actor or try it or just mess around, these classes are great. So the Adult Weekly Class is going to be every Wednesday at 5:30 Pacific. Now, come and check it out. It's going to be really fun. Go to workingactorschool.com. Check out the website. You can sign up for the class there. If you need any other information, there's a phone number and an email on the website. You can get it there. And we would love to have you come and try. Talk to you soon.
Act 2. Success.
So Gavin McLeod, who played the captain, had been looking to
Uh-huh.
expand the history of the captain into more than just being kind of a hard ass, and my character kind of afforded that. And I think they got a lot of letters saying they really loved to see that side of the captain with this little girl, and that episode
Yeah.
did really well. So when my series friends didn't go, Aaron called me back in Livermore and said he'd like me to come back and do Love Boat. So I didn't audition for it or anything, I just did it, and it was about
How
this.
long was the time period from when you sent that letter to the agent in San Francisco to being on Love Boat?
Probably about maybe 2 years. I mean,
That's a long
these,
time when you're a kid. It doesn't feel like it now when we're
right,
older, but 2 years, it's a big chunk of your life. So
right.
it
But I
wasn't
mean,
like
I worked
immediate to you.
constantly through all of
Yeah.
that. I did, a Red Barn commercial, a Clorox commercial, a Marine World commercial, so I did all of that stuff. And then
Had
I
you
was
done
doing
Airplane before Love Boat,
it.
or was that
Yes,
concurrent?
it was right before. When I was in Northern California, I entered this pageant uh, called California Little Miss, and I was not. I can tell you, not a pageant girl. All those girls had beautifully coiffed hair, and they, would do ballet for a talent, or they would do whatever. My mom took me down to the local beauty school because I had stick straight hair, and it never looked good doing anything. And she made me get an afro, a permanent wave, at the beauty school. So I had this curly hair. That way, I could get out of the swim team, and my hair would just be already done. I
Right.
hated it, but it was what it was. And so um, I went and did this thing called California Little Miss, and my mom made my dress, and I sang this little song called Dutch Dolls, and I won, which was very surprising and shocking to my mother. When they were announcing third runner up, second runner up, first runner up, she was about to walk out. She's like, well, I can't even believe she didn't even make third runner up. I don't expect more, but really? And then when they were gobsmacked when I won, because I didn't fit that mold at all. I mean, I was not a beautiful little girl. Do you know what I mean? Like those little girls
Oh,
who are just
sure. No, there's
perfect.
definitely, yeah, it's like there's China dolls, and
Yeah,
you've
no,
you've
that was
always
not
been
me.
And this is not a metaphor for anything. Your personality plus, in the sense that like you light up a room, you light up. That's what your acting is based on, as far as I'm concerned, is that it comes from inside, and you
Oh, you're
definitely
sweet.
had that inside light. That,
Well, you're sweet. I just loved it, and I loved people,
yeah.
and I had a ball of energy, and so it was all of that stuff happened at the same time. So California Little Miss happened. I went through my year doing that, and
Uh
then
huh.
I got immediately got Airplane, and then Love Boat happened, right
Well,
right around the same time.
this is amazing. I mean, like, it's so there's so much to like parse at this moment in your life. How old are you around here? 9, maybe?
Yeah, right around 9, and it's
Yeah.
just, this is not something like, "Oh boy, I wish I knew what plan she did to make that happen because I'm gonna follow that roadmap." It's not.
Right,
It's
right.
just, stuff happens, and it's a trajectory that is a divine trajectory that is, a universe plan. All I knew is I was just doing cartwheels and having fun and saying yes to auditions and walking in. It wasn't if
Had
people
you had
things
any acting training at this point?
uh by the time I got an agent, then my mom started taking me to San Francisco, and I started working at ATC, which
Uh-huh.
is not ACT, but it's it's interesting. The teacher was Vivian Vance's sister, Vivian Vance
Oh,
from I Love
wow.
Lucy.
From
She
I
played
Love Lucy,
Ethel.
yeah.
Yeah, and she had this beautiful, beautiful Victorian home in San Francisco, and she and her much younger husband were the teachers. And it
That
was
was his official name. Much younger
much
husband.
younger husband, yes, for the role of much younger husband. But that was at the time really it. Everything else was learning as I went
Okay,
on
so then
stage.
let
But
me. I'm fascinated by this because the Zuckers did Airplane, which was like a landmark comedy movie that
yes,
if you're our age, you know exactly what it is. But at the time, it was a joke a minute, or like 3 jokes in a minute. No one had ever done it before. It was like this big thing. And Airplane obviously was a takeoff on the airport movies. More
yes,
specifically, it was a one particular movie. I
Airport
forget the name of it.
77.
Airport 77, but it's literally it's taken from it's an old World War II movie that they took this
Oh,
structure from, and then they made it into, I mean, Airplane, which is its own movie. And I mean, there's no
right.
jokes in the old movie. It's like 30 seconds over something or other.
Oh, okay,
Um,
okay. See, you're
where
teaching
he's
me
like
something.
well, it was like he was an alcohol. The whole story of him being an alcoholic and trying to fly the plane, and not being able to fly the plane and then landing it. It's very, very interesting. There's bunches of video essays online about it.
Oh, wow.
However, all they did was take the structure of it and then make it this brand new type of comedy. The reason I'm going to
Yeah.
all of this story is you were playing a character that's basically the Linda Blair character from the
Yes.
airport movie, where
Yes.
you're this little sick girl, and they had all these great gags and great jokes. Here's the question: it was it, considered a broad comedy, but when you do broad comedy, you have to know what you're doing, and you did it so well. I mean, I still laugh at the faces that you're
Oh
making
God.
when you're dying because they're on your power cords or whatever.
Right.
Um, how do you where did that come from? Is that just part of your personality? Did they work with you on
Yes.
set?
No, I mean, my audition was with oh God, why am I having a senior moment? Howard, God, the executive producer of the whole thing.
Okay.
Anyway, I just remember he had these big, huge gold brass doors, and I went in and to audition for him. And he said, "Make a funny face." I said, "Okay." And that's the face I made. I did the fish lips. That was just what I did. So no, there's no, here's the thing about kid actors, and you know this too. I mean, we are so
Yeah.
close to make believe because that's what we do as
Right.
children. We play with our dolls, we play with our GI Joes, we make believe that's what we do. So, I've taught acting to kids in the past, and they're easy because it's
Yeah.
natural for them, and it's very natural to go into the fantasy world, and it changes as we get older because our reality becomes much more real to us. So
Right.
for kids, for the most part they're playing make believe, and
Yeah.
it's easy.
But
Suspending
it doesn't
belief
mean
just
they're
gets harder
good.
as we get
It
older.
doesn't mean they may be able to do the job, but it's different when it's like you're funny in the movie, not like, oh, it's a funny kid. You are funny. And so it's like there's something that I mean, you obviously you're successful at it, so that's probably why is you're talented. But it's interesting, it's fascinating to me that you're not like trained to the hilt because a lot of these actor kids have been training since they're, whatever, however old.
Right.
So it was just the fact that it came naturally to you, maybe as a
I think it's
benefit in
being
the comedy.
fearless. I think it's
Yeah,
being fearless because I think we can all do it, to be honest. If you think about it, the
sure.
reason some actors struggle um, is because they're still on the outside looking in to whatever character they're playing.
Yeah, absolutely. Being vulnerable is a big secret because what you're talking about when you're looking in is I describe because I have classes and I teach classes and again the kids are the best ones.
Yeah.
They're not performing and then and judging their performance in the moment of performing
Right.
and
Right. That's
that's a
the
killer.
hardest thing not to do,
Yeah.
to
Well, let me
completely
let me
set
ask you
yourself
because
aside.
we're moving into. I mean, we're already there. I mean, just fast. That was so fast to got here. You're doing Love Boat, okay?
Hmm.
And at the time you joined, you weren't there at the beginning, so Love Boat was on. What was your thought about
Hmm.
going on to Love Boat? Like it was a huge hit. How did you feel about
Again,
that?
as being a kid and not having that frame of reference of the world, here's the world, and here's the. Yeah, I didn't even think about it. I was like, oh, this will be fun. I
Right,
mean, as an adult going into, I mean, what could be, at the time we only had three networks. It wasn't like the amount of things that we can watch and stream today on, normal
right.
platforms and streaming platforms. There were three channels, and Love Boat was in the top 10 and usually the top five.
Yeah,
So I'm trying to think of what it could be akin to, maybe a Ted Lasso, for example. Um,
right.
Not comparing the writing, but saying in terms of popularity, everybody was talking about it Monday morning. I didn't, as an adult, I would, if I had to go into Ted Lasso, I would be scared to death. I'm just thinking, oh my God, I don't deserve this. I'm not good enough for, all of those things that you think of. As a kid, I was like, oh, this will be fun. Okay, let's play.
Right.
That was it.
Yeah. Coming from Little House on the Prairie, it's very important that the adults on a TV show are kind, and all of
Yes.
those people were. And my
Yes.
experience on Love Boat was as well. That was my experience. I'm assuming
Yeah,
yours is similar, but what
absolutely.
was it like? What was it for you
I
as a
was
kid on the
so,
show?
so, so lucky to be with this group of people. I mean, we are still so close today. We're actually, Ted, Fred, and I, Ted Lange and Fred Grandy, and I
Uh-huh.
just did a play together in Dexter, Michigan. We
Oh
just did I'm Not
wow.
Rappaport. And we are now doing a different play off Broadway in New York this summer um, that Ted wrote. So he
Oh
will be
wow.
writing and directing, and Fred and I will be in it. And Lauren Tewes, we call her Cindy because that's her real name. We are extremely close, and she's just an amazing human being. Bernie is, I adore Bernie. What's not to love? And he's
Yeah.
a genius. Bernie
Yeah.
is a comedic genius with such an incredible pedigree of comedy. And, I'm just and Ted McGinley, who came later, I love Ted. If I ever
Yeah.
had a crush on anybody on the show, it was Ted McGinley. Um,
Oh, sure. Good looking guy.
yeah,
Really,
yeah,
really
I know.
sweet. He also did our show
Funny.
and was just hysterical. He's just a
Yeah,
really good guy.
he's the best. He's the best. We were so lucky to have such kind people, and they were so kind and generous to me as a kid coming onto their show. And I mean, it could have been like, hey, we're fine. We're already good. We don't need this extra,
Right.
you know, child coming in, the W.C. Field thing. I'm not going to work with children or animals. We don't need her pulling focus, but that's not what it was. And
Right.
they were wonderful and still are wonderful. And I miss Gavin every single day. He was like a
Yeah.
dad to me. I actually eulogized him.
Oh.
And he, it's just an amazing human. Everybody is an amazing human being in our cast, and we are all so lucky that we still are good friends and that we can still work together.
As I said earlier with Little House, growing up on Little House, we had obviously a lot of kids, but we also had a lot of adults. And the adults, just like you experienced on Love Boat, were wonderful. Before we get into the guest stars, which is a
Yeah.
huge part, what was it like to be the only child on the show? I mean, kind of you were, kind of you weren't, but like, how was that for you?
Well, it's hard to answer that only because it's all I know. You know,
Right.
that's the only experience I had. It's like when people say, "How was it growing up as a child actor?" Well, I don't know, because that was just seemed normal to me because I don't
Exactly.
remember my past lives. But and this was you know, I don't know what it would have been like any other way. I just know how lucky I was to have these people there who protected me. And it wasn't as, and I know you have the same experience, it wasn't just the actors, it was the crew
Yeah.
was also very protective. And sometimes there were some members of the crew, directors or the like, where my cast members would protect me, saying, "Don't talk to her like that," or you know, whatever. People who just
Right. Uh-huh.
a director that would come in who's not always there, or what have you. You know, Lauren Tewes used to do that for me all the time. I remember one time when I was just 13 and quote unquote becoming a woman
Uh-huh.
the very day of.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was doing a scene with Lonnie Anderson, and we were in the purser's lobby. And I used to get everything in one take. I didn't,
Right.
I just didn't mess up like that. And I couldn't get this line out. I couldn't get it out. And then I started thinking in my head, oh my God, money is time, time is money. All these people are here. Everybody's waiting. Da 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 da. So then I just started to cry. And so Lauren took me back behind the set, and the director was getting really angry. And she
Uh-huh.
admonished the director and said, you know, something to the effect of, leave her alone. This is not helping her at all. And all you're doing is making things worse. And so
Wow.
she took me behind the set and talked to me and understood what was going on and went out and said something to the director, like, you better frickin' handle this with kid gloves because here's what's happening. And if not, you're going to hear from me. So I came back
Wow.
out, and but if you ever watch that episode, it's the boarding scene, and I'll lay the best they could get out of me, because you know when you start crying to the point where you can't, and
Yeah.
if you have kids, so you know that
Yeah.
even like minutes, hours, an hour or so later, they're still like this.
Yeah.
So the line is, she won the Green Apple Award or something like that's the best they could get because it was the last day of shooting before we went on hiatus. So
That's why I'm on this cruise. To meet her.
Oh, are you sure you want to? On the TV news, they said she was voted the Sour Apple Award for being the most uncooperative actress in Hollywood.
Maybe she hasn't met the right person to cooperate with.
Well, Mr. Benson, if you think you're the one Miss Holland's been waiting for, why don't you ask her?
There she is now. Miss Holland.
you know that
Well,
kind
and
of
you
stuff
know,
happens.
it's happened to every girl. You go through the change, you become a woman. It's on
Yep.
national TV. Lonnie Anderson is there, and you're being directed, and it's recorded and filmed for perpetuity forever.
Yeah, who
Classic
hasn't had that
story.
experience?
Right, exactly. We'll be back after these messages. Hey there, my name is Patrick Labyorteaux, and I play an actor on TV. And I also have this acting school called Working Actors School. And what we do there is we teach people to act using Zoom. So you can take an acting class with me and with a person in Connecticut, in Florida, and San Diego all at the same time, thanks to the miracle of Zoom. But we also teach kids. We have a great class called the Youth Weekly class that's every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. And it's for kids. It's for like 10 to 17. And we have a great group of kids right now, and it is ongoing. So if you know someone that wants to get into acting and has never done any acting but would love to try, why don't you have them try starting off with Youth Weekly? Just go to workingactorschool.com and check us out. It's Youth Weekly every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Time. Act 3, present day. So okay, so let's get to these crazy this show again. I'm just for the people that don't know, which is everybody who does. Everyone knows Love Boat, but Aaron Spelling had this. He had Fantasy Island. He did a number of these shows where they would split an hour of TV, which is like 40 minutes of TV, into 3 different stories, and each story had 2 people that were guest stars because they had to either fall in love or fall in love with somebody from the crew. Then they
Right.
had your crew.
Mm-hmm.
So I did the math, and you've already confirmed it. Over 1,000 guest stars that you worked with.
Yes. Lana
Now I've
Turner was
talked
our
to,
1,000th.
oh my God. I mean, I've talked to other people, and I think it was Glenn and oh, who was it? Keith Coogan also,
Okay.
where we talked about you and said the person who's probably worked with the most huge stars is Jill, because every big movie star from the 20s and 30s and 40s appeared on your show. I'm
Right.
setting all of this up for this question.
Yes.
Oh my God, what was that like? Did you know who these people were?
I did for the most part, and thank God I was the kind of kid that loved old black and white movies. I loved them. I had paper dolls of, the Lana Turners and the Judy Garlands and the Vivian Lee's and Olivia DeHavilland, all of them. And I loved them. So I was very excited when those people would come on. And when you get to the musicals that we did, I was also a theater kid. That's where I started, as we've
Right.
spoken about, specifically musical theater. So when we had Ethel Merman on, when we had Van Johnson on, Ann Miller, Cab Calloway,
Oh my God.
I mean, it just goes on. MIlton Berle, um, the list goes on and on and on and on. And I, I mean, I can't even tell you. I was so excited, but the beauty was I was young enough to not be um, intimidated because I was too innocent to be intimidated.
Right.
Whereas when I was an adult and I worked with Dick Van Dyke on his show
Uh-huh.
Diagnosis Murder, I was a mom at that point. So now the perspective as a mom was, oh my God, this is
Right.
Dick Van Dyke, who I watch Chitty Chitty Bang Bang with my children, with my son. We watch Mary Poppins together. So I worked with him as an adult with a completely different lens, and I was a babbling idiot. I
Well,
mean,
he's a well-known monster, though. He's one of the worst people in the world, so I'm sure it was a horrible experience for you.
Yeah. No, he was darling and so sweet. But I know in the back of his mind, he's probably like, geez, where did they get this kid? Did the actor they want first decline or what?
I tell this story about Dick Van Dyke because it's really funny. We were shooting a TV movie, and I was at the craft service table, and this old guy from behind me goes, "What are you shooting?" And I turn around, and it's Dick Van Dyke, and we just happened to be near his house. And he's one of these guys, and you'll recognize it because literally you've worked with everyone, literally.
Yeah. Yeah.
That there are some guys in the business who love the business so much that he was just visiting the set, wanted to see what we
Yeah.
were shooting, what's going on.
Yep.
Who would you
Yep.
say would okay, so obviously you cannot be like intimidated. I mean, I get what you're saying about Dick Van Dyke, but you can't be like impressed by like stars after the fact of all the people that you've worked with. But at that time, was there anyone that you worked with where you were really excited? Like, was one of your favorites? Like you've said that there were lots of them, but like, did you have one particular that like you couldn't wait to have them on the show?
Boy. It's, again, so many, so many.
When people say that, usually you roll their eyes, but not you, because again, 1,000 stars.
Yeah,
Holy crap.
I mean, Olivia de Havilland, because I was a huge Gone with the Wind fan. I mean,
Yeah.
I had a brick from the theater in Atlanta with a little brass plate on it where the movie premiered. I had Walter Plunkett who did the costumes. I had all of sketches. So, I mean, I had a little gold necklace that said GWTW for Gone with the Wind. So I was a huge fan. So when she was there, and she could not have been more lovely, could not have been more lovely. I was excited when Micke Rooney did this show. Um,
Right?
I mean, Mickey is it was. a character, but he was very sweet with me. But I think his impressions of growing up as a child actor were a lot different than mine. So
Oh,
he was a
yeah.
little bit more jaded about it than I was, but he was lovely to me. Sammy Davis Jr., who never did Love Boat, but I used to tour with him,
Uh-huh.
and Glenn, and we would do these telethons, was so darling and so lovely with me. I just cherished my friendship with him. Um, God, I remember the first time I was on stage with him and I sang, and then he came on stage and I was little, and he
Uh-huh.
said, do you happen to know anything from the Willy Wonka movie? And he proceeded to sing Candyman with me. I mean, I
Oh
know.
my
I
God.
know. I
Really?
got to
You sang
dance
with
with,
Sammy?
yes, many times. I got to dance with Ginger Rogers. Um, yeah, I know. I know. It's like
Oh God, that's awesome.
it's an incredible thing. When I was in New York shopping when I was in my late teens, I was tapped on the shoulder by somebody who said, "Are you Jill Whelan?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Well," and Andy Warhol had done the show. She
Uh-huh.
said, "Well, I work for Andy Warhol, and if he knew you were in town, he would be very upset with me if I didn't invite you to come down to the factory. Do you have a minute to come down to the factory?" And I got into a taxi with this girl who said she knew Andy Warhol. I didn't know. And I got into a taxi with the girl, went down to a warehouse, and yes, in fact, Andy answered the door. So it, I've had some incredible experiences. And so to say favorites, there's so many different ones. Tom Hanks was and
Right.
is a favorite. Van Johnson, I loved. He was lovely. I mean, the list, it just goes
Well,
on
I
and
mean,
on.
it's a hard question, so it's like I'll
Yeah,
help corral some of this stuff in because yeah, absolutely. When you work with 1,000 people, it's like it's just I keep coming up with that number because it's just so. I mean,
it's amazing to think
as a
about.
kid, yeah. I mean, it'll never happen again. It
No.
doesn't work like that. We tell
Mm-mm.
stories on Little House of working with Ray Bolger. We tell
Oh,
stories. I had to dance with Donald O'Connor because of
yes.
like something. Those are my two, and
Yeah.
so I get it when you say that because I should slow down. I'm just so excited by it. 70s and 80s was the time period where we're talking about all of these shows
Hmm.
where, like I said, they were old enough to still be acting, but but still from the 20s and 30s. So like the
Yeah.
history of Hollywood hit that show.
Lillian
So
Gish.
what?
Yes. Yes. From the
Oh my
silent
God.
movies. Yeah. Yeah. And it was, and they loved it. They were so excited to be back on a set. They were just,
Yeah.
it's because it was that time when that was a bygone era and they were forgotten. And so this was a wonderful way for them to come back and Aaron, of course, was so great at treating these people with the reverence that they deserved, and that they hadn't had in quite some time. I mean, when TV came in, as we all know, all the movie it rendered movies a whole different class, and it,
Yeah.
and so it's kind of like streaming does now and the internet does now.
Well, Aaron would do this thing. I guessed it twice. The first one, I fell in love with Julie, who I really fell in love with because she's,
Amazing.
Lauren is just, oh my God. And she made me feel, because she's a sweetheart and you know
Yeah.
her. Of course, you know
Yeah.
all of it. And so I felt for sure that we were really in love. And then I did I did the episode where I was the bad boy to you. And it was like, talk about my awkward period. That was like literally could have been the week, the month, the day that I was the most awkward ever. And so I look at our episode as being like, oh my God, I look so weird. My hair's so weird. What's going on
Yeah,
with my nose? And
I
you
get it.
just the
I was
weird
in the same
teenage
place.
things. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But both times I did it, I get this great, beautiful silver service set from Aaron and
Yep.
huge gifts. And I'm just a dude on a weekly show.
Yeah.
I can imagine how he treated you guys.
He was
So let's
wonderful.
back up a
Yeah.
little bit and talk about you guys shot. I'm sure that everyone asks you this question. You shot at 20th Century Fox. That's where I
Mhm.
shot this stuff.
That's the
The
first
boat,
studio.
you're And
Then we
what
moved from 20th over to Warner Hollywood, which is right now, I've forgotten what the name of it is now, but it's on
they
Santa
changed it?
Monica and
Yeah.
Formosa.
Right, it's right next to the Formosa Cafe. It's
Yep.
right in the center of West Hollywood.
Yep.
It exactly used to be the old Warner lot. Um, okay, so I shot there at 20th, and right next to you guys was MASH
Yeah.
and a whole bunch of other stuff.
And
And when you drive
family.
in, the Hello Dolly set was still there. What
Oh,
was it like working on these lots?
well, my lunch hour was amazing because I would just walk around and it's called the New York Street. So
Yep.
I would just walk up and down and I would continue to play act by myself or pretend I was in a musical and do numbers or roller skate to the commissary where Shirley Temple went.
Right.
Um, and it was halcyon days. It was incredible. I was one of the only kids on that lot. Um,
Yeah.
we had Christy McNichol for a while and Quinn Cummings, but
Okay.
other than that, it was just me.
Yeah, I did your show there. I did a show called Trapper John MD,
Oh my gosh, yes.
Starsky and Hutch, Up
Yep.
the Hill.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I mean, it was just a big television studio. And then you guys moved to Warner's. And what was that like? I'd never really worked at that Warner's lot.
It was quiet because it was just us and Dynasty.
Oh, wow.
That was it. No, and
Did
Matt
you ever
Houston.
hang out with the Dynasty people? Because they were super, I mean, at least Carringtons were really, really great to me. So
Uh,
nice. John
uh,
Forsythe was like a gentleman.
yeah, he was lovely to me. I used to travel with him doing these telethons too. He was a sweetheart. But no, their set was, oh, I lost my earpiece. Their set was a little different. Do you know what I mean? It was uh they had a real closed set. Our set was much
Okay.
more open and hey, come on in. But they had Joan Collins and all of
Right.
that. And Linda Evans was a dear heart to me, a dear heart. And Joan was too. Actually, Joan was very lovely to me. Um, but it was just a different thing. And I was just so busy um,
Right.
working or going to school. And if I wasn't in school, my mother would take me off the set immediately and bring me to my regular school so that I could have some regular school experience. So,
So when you're
um,
doing this show where I mean, you played the cruise director kind of, right? That was like
junior
you were
cruise
the
director.
junior cruise director. I can't help but think that that's kind of what you had, kind of what you did as well with all these guest stars. You had to be welcoming to all of these
Yes.
people.
Yes.
And uh, when you, I guess I should stop and slow down. So you're shooting on the lots, but you also had those fantastic voyages, literally the cruises, which I never got to be on. Always wanted one. Everyone wanted to go on the real life cruise. What was that like when you're on a real life cruise?
It was both amazing and incredibly frustrating. And what I mean by frustrating is that here I am on the set doing my lines, whatever. And then immediately when I'm done, it's a beautiful day in the Bahamas. And I go down to my cabin to go to school. Everybody else is sitting on the deck in their bathing suit. I'm sitting in a tiny little dingy cabin because this was way before the ships are what they are now. There's no balcony to sit and do my homework on. Oh my God, this sounds so bougie. But it's just a little porthole, and all I keep thinking about is everybody upstairs is having a great time, hanging out, having a margarita. Not that I was having a margarita, but
Right. No, I get it. I always used to be frustrated that like we're literally doing the same job as kid actors, but the other actors can go over their lines and work on stuff and we have to go back and do algebra and it's not
oh,
fair.
it's the worst. And we can't even cheat because we're the only student in the classroom. It's
It's
the
that's so funny. That's so
worst.
right.
And I would fall asleep in the classroom, and duh, she knows because I'm the only one there. It was like, oh God. Uh,
So when you were on these cruises, was it like one of those things where they had like a velvet rope and then like just passengers were watching you shoot or
yes, but also, I mean, it was so innocent back then. People were so excited that the Love Boat was on their cruise. Some of them booked it because the Love Boat was on their cruise, that they got to
wow.
participate as background actors. So Aaron got all this free background actor action happening, and he'd just give them a little raffle ticket, and at the end of the cruise, every time you participated as a background actor, you'd get a raffle ticket, and by the end of the cruise they would raffle off a TV, and it was thrilling.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
all, that's all he had to pay for all that background acting.
They
It
actually
was
paid
one.
him a full-on Tom Sawyer because they're
Oh
paying for
yeah.
the cruise. So
Ye-
what you got to go to Mexico, to Cancun, all these different places, Alaska,
yep.
I'm assuming the Bahamas.
Yep.
Do you have a favorite? I mean, you must be on a ton of cruises. So
Mediterranean
you
is my
okay.
favorite. It always will be, always
Why is
has
that?
been.
Is it just so pretty?
Just, it's so pretty and the food is so good, and it's just, I mean, watch White Lotus, you'll see why. I love it
Yeah,
so
no, I
much.
get it. I get it. I just, didn't know it was a personal preference or
Do you know
not.
what's so funny? While we've been doing this, I've gotten 4 texts just now
Uh-huh.
that have come up on my screen. One of them is just from Lauren Tewes
Oh,
saying, yes, saying, hey guys, I'm going to do the reunion cruise in November out of Galveston. Then I got a ding from Ted saying, that's awesome. And one from Fred just saying, yes. So, see, I told you, we still all,
I love it. See, we're connected. Please
that's
tell
right.
Lauren that I love her still and that I need to get her numbers.
I
Um,
will.
so okay, so we've talked about the legendary
Yeah.
superstars, which again, you also get to work with them as actors. Kind of a subtle question. Was there one performer that you were like blown away with working with as a actor, like what they were doing? Or was it, I mean, is that again another tough question to sum up?
Well, um, it's, that again is a hard question because I'm looking at it through the prism of being a kid actor.
Right.
Um, but what I can say is that when we did the musicals in particular, it was just mind-boggling to be in rehearsal with these people and watching them work as
Right.
musical theater actors. And I will say, one of the coolest things about doing those musicals is that we worked with a live orchestra when we recorded. I mean, obviously we had, when
Oh,
we were on the
wow.
set, we were lip syncing to something that we had already recorded, but we recorded it with a 36-piece live orchestra in a
And probably in
recording
a
studio.
famous studio. Yeah, probably
Yes,
in a
I'm
studio
sure it
that they
was.
record. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm sure it was. So that is phenomenal to be able to sing to a live orchestra in a recording studio and
It's
with
so
these
powerful.
people. Yes, and watch how they did it. Watch Donald O'Connor how he did it. Or gosh, I mean any of them, Ethel Merman, Van Johnson, as I mentioned, Cab Calloway, all of them. Watching Ann Miller, I don't know what you
Dance.
call it
Yeah.
because you're not lip syncing to her
Right.
tap dancing, but watching her tap sync to her recorded tap for a number, so those things I was absolutely totally impressed with.
That makes sense. I totally get it because it is. It's not a it's not a mistake that these people have incredible talent, and when you see
Yeah.
incredible talent, it's obvious. It's very special. Sometimes when you're doing film, you can watch a performance and go, "I don't see that. What's going on there?" And then you see it on the screen and you go, "Oh." But this was a different era where the
Yeah.
talent was just a big, huge, glowing, you know,
Not much to hide behind,
searchlight.
you
Yeah,
know?
exactly. So then
Yeah.
one other question for all the guest stars. So now you're a young lady, which has got to be the weirdest thing in the world, becoming, that transition on
Oh, it's
camera.
so fun to do in front of national television. It's such a joy. Good times, good
Good
times.
times. And it's
Yeah.
Love Boat. So they're setting you up with every single kid guy that came along that just sort of was a thing of the moment because they're not legendary stars. The only thing they had was maybe some popularity of the moment.
Yeah.
But that means that Jill is co starring with the popular teen boy every time they
So
bring somebody
awkward.
on. What was
So
that like?
awkward.
Awkward? Yeah.
Because I was so sheltered. I mean, I, my first kiss ever was on camera. Yeah.
Oh, that's not right.
And I think it was with, I know, and I think it was with Glenn.
Okay.
Pretty sure
I
it was
think he
with Glenn
mentioned something like
Scarpelli.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I think that's what turned him gay. Pretty sure. Pretty sure that had something to do.
I guarantee you it's not. You can't turn someone gay. But I will tell you this, I can't think of a nicer guy to like
Oh,
not be. So many guys could be creepy at that point. I mean,
no, he was my.
yeah.
Oh no, he would terrorize me. We would do these telethons. He would terrorize me. He would say, "Hey Jill, do you see that guy?" And he would do it on camera live. Do you see that guy in the front row? He's into you. He told me on camera, in front of people, all the time.
Now,
And then
Glenn
he
was
would just
really, really
giggle.
open. Glenn
Yeah,
was really, really open on the show talking about it, that he was closeted at this point, which is
I had
like
no
you're a
idea.
kid.
No
Right. You
idea.
don't know. No one knows. I mean, if he knew, but he didn't tell anybody. And
Or
so
he
it's
knew,
sort
but he
of
didn't
like,
know what he knew yet.
right. No, he says that he knew, but that
Okay.
he wasn't telling. That's what he said. I wasn't
Okay.
putting that in his mouth. But
Yeah, no. Yeah.
because you guys dated, like that thing that you do when you're a kid actor, is you go to things, you go to different events and you're seen with
Yeah.
a
With my
guy.
pal. Just my
Yeah, he's
bud.
your buddy.
Yeah.
And then all these other stories in teen magazines. How did they treat you in the teen magazines?
They were, I think, always pretty good about that sort of thing. So the only thing that ever happened that was a little creepy was when I was in high school, we had uh a choreographer employed at the school who was rather
Uh-huh.
young. And I think this is when ET came out, and I needed somebody to go with me to ET. And my mom thought it was a very
I'm
safe
so sorry.
thing.
The movie or the
The movie.
Entertainment Tonight?
Oh,
Okay,
sorry,
got it.
sorry, the movie ET.
Uh-huh.
And my mom and I thought it was safe to go with him because he was gay, so we knew I'd be okay. And he
Uh-huh.
worked at the school, so we knew I'd be okay. What we didn't know is that he was also a frustrated actor. So he went to the Inquirer and told them that he was going to be going as my date and told them that we were actually in a relationship. Yeah.
Oh my
And
God.
so he ended up getting fired from the school for obvious
Yeah.
reasons. But that's the only thing that ever really happened that was weird when I was a kid in terms of that kind of thing. I mean, I went places with my other friend from the TV show Hotel, Michael Spound, who was on
Uh-huh.
Hotel. He's now married to Heidi Bohe, who was also on the show, and they're so cute together.
I
Um,
remember Heidi.
yeah, but Spound and I went to a couple of events. He was older than me by God. It seemed like he was a man and I was a kid, but actually it was probably like I don't know 6 years difference. I don't know,
Right.
but Spound went to an event with me. But it was never. I never dated. My first my first real boyfriend that I ever had was in my senior year, the end of my senior year of high school. Nothing
And
before.
somebody from school or somebody in your personal life, right? It's not
Somebody in
like
my personal life, not an actor.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
sometimes it happens with actors because that is their personal life, because you're working with somebody and
right.
you have a relationship and you meet somebody and you're the same age. But a lot of times it's just outside of the industry because it's real.
Right.
And you
Right.
don't know what else is going on. So when the show, I mean, it's this huge hit, and then as with all huge hits, they either end but Love Boat ends, but it also kind of continues where
I
you guys
know.
did movies and specials and
We
stuff.
couldn't quit each other.
Right. So towards the end of this, did you know the show was ending, and what was it like when it ended, or did you know you'd be doing this other stuff?
No, when it ended, it ended as far as we knew.
Okay.
We didn't know that they would do any other specials or anything like that. And I remember that when it ended, I booked a TV movie directed by Martin Sheen.
Uh-huh.
And I just remember thinking, God, I'm going to be so glad when this is over. I'm so tired of doing the same thing. I'm so excited about this movie.
Yeah.
Um, stupid, stupid. But I was a kid. I'd been working since I was very little, and I just kind of wanted a break. I wanted to be normal. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to,
Yep.
you know, just do normal things. And it wasn't because I was forced to do Love Boat. That was my choice to do it. But with
Right.
anything, I mean, even kids play. I mean, let's bring it down to a granular level that everybody can understand, which is when your kids are playing soccer. At some point, if they're playing it for a long time and they start doing club soccer, they get burned out. It just
Right.
happens. And that happened to me for a little while. Didn't mean that I didn't love acting. It just meant that I might want to try a different sport, you
Right.
know,
Of
even
course.
in the
No,
same
I get it.
milieu. But so that was that's kind of how it was when it was over. And then we came back and it was so fun to do those reunions. It was a blast because we love
Yeah.
everybody.
So when you leave Love Boat and you did the TV movie and you continue doing other work, were you, because were you shocked at how unprofessional other places were compared to how you guys would get stuff done on Love Boat?
Yeah, sometimes I was. Sometimes I was shocked that there wasn't the conviviality, but
Mm,
we were ingrained from Gavin and Bernie setting a precedent. This is our home. These guests are being welcomed into our home. When someone
mm,
comes to your home, you walk up to them. You make sure they feel welcome. You welcome them. You invite them to lunch. You know, all those things that you do when
wow.
somebody comes to your home. So and I think that for us it was a must to do that, and it was organic to do that because our whole show was based on guests.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's a, I don't know, some other show, whatever it might be, you're
Right.
not, they're not used to having guests in their home, so to speak. So I don't think it ever is out of malice, but it might just be out of not occurring to them. Oh yeah, these people don't know anybody here. Oh yeah, I should probably welcome them to
Well,
our show.
we both have worked on a TV show where you've got maybe make up a cop show where there's two cops,
Right,
where there's the one guy cop and the girl cop, and you're like the crime of the week or the witness of the week, and you
right,
walk in and no one talks to you, and they're
right,
talking to themselves like because it's day 348 of their production schedule,
right,
and they're just having a day, and it's like,
right.
oh, this is the other person I'm working with, but you're not
Correct.
treated like a person.
Correct.
But that was like
You're
I was
yeah.
saying, I can tell you as a guest, it was exactly like what you said. I felt welcomed. I felt everyone was super nice. To this day, what
Well,
was amazing
good.
was when we were at Little League, and I see that why can't I remember? I
Bernie,
love this man, Bernie. I see Bernie there, and Bernie's kid and my kid are playing Little League together, and it's because of Hollywood. He's got a young wife,
I
and
know.
so I see Bernie there, and I go, oh, and I tell my wife, I go, I was on Love Boat, and Bernie was, he was a really nice guy, and I think I'm going to go over and explain to him that I was on Love Boat, and I did this thing you won't remember. And so I get over there, and I'm like, excuse me, Mr. Coppell, and he goes, Patrick, how are you? It's been so long since I've seen you. It's like it wasn't even a second before he was like right
Yeah.
there. I mean, he totally got it. And
Yeah.
so it was like that was like years later. So, but my experience on the show is great. You were
I'm so
amazing.
glad.
Let's just talk about our episode for a second.
Okay.
Again, just a weird thing for kids, right?
Yeah.
Where in our episode, I play like this world traveling kid who is after Erlene Mandrell.
Oh my
And
God.
it was a chain of fools type of thing where I wanted a hot chick like Erlene Mandrell, and Vicki was kind of sweet on my character, but I was like, I wasn't interested in a little girl. I wanted an older
Yeah.
girl.
Yeah.
And
She's
then
not fast
Vicki,
enough.
no, she's not fast enough. Exactly. And Vicki puts on makeup,
Oh
which
God.
her dad does not want her in makeup. And so, I remember you had this great line where it's like, how old are you? And you go, 16.
And since jobs are getting kind of scarce for a 17-year-old girl.
Your father's the captain.
Like it was like this big lie that Vicki never told a lie before. And I remember having a
Yeah.
great time working with you because I'm a very professional kid actor. We were talking about that earlier. Kid
Yeah.
actors just, you know your lines, you know your mark, you do your job. And it was always great to work with somebody like yourself who did that as well. The reason I'm
Oh,
talking
you're
so much is
sweet.
because you did 1,000 episodes. You're not going to remember, what our experience was, I don't think.
No,
But
I remember us going to school together, which is the other
right.
thing that's so interesting. It's like all of a sudden we have a new kid in class. There's only two of us, but it was so exciting because then I wasn't by myself in the classroom. It was awesome. I
Did you
loved
have a
that
lot
part.
of? I mean, I assume that they always set Vicki up, but I'm assuming that because when those storylines were out there would be like Glenn would be a guest, or
Right.
you'd have these kid guest stars. But how often was that?
Um, it was not super often. I think maybe I'm going to say maybe twice a season.
Oh, that's not anything at all.
No, not very often. I don't think so. As you got to write kids in. It comes up with a whole set of other
Right.
requirements. They only work so
Yeah.
many hours, and and so I don't think
Right.
they did it a ton that I recall.
Well, I know my brother was on the show.
y-
Did he ever, was he in a relationship with Vicki?
oh God knows, I can't. Shit, so many. No, but I don't remember, but I obviously remember your brother, but I don't
Sure.
remember if we were in a relationship. I know. I'm trying to think. Alison Arngrim was on.
Right. Okay. Yeah, she
Yeah,
did a bunch of them. They had my friend Stephen Manley, who I just had on. He did an episode or two, and
yeah,
so it's like you end up working with the people that you end up working with.
yeah.
Um, so we're gonna leave the Love Boat. We're gonna deboard,
Okay, disembark.
but disembark. Thank you, cruise director junior.
That's right for the
Is there anything that you would
technical
want people to
terms.
know about your experience on the show that really people get wrong or anything when they're talking or asking you questions about it?
Um, I don't think people get a lot of stuff wrong. I think people really the thing that I the thing I think that I love the most about what people say, and this is what I'll leave you with, is that my favorite thing that people say, and they say it all the time, is thank you for creating a show that I could watch with my grandmother when I was a little kid, and we would both get something out of it. Um, Peggy
Yeah, that's
Lee
great.
always wanted to be on the Love Boat, and she never got to be. But her granddaughter is a friend of mine, and she talks about having watched it with her all the time. So things
Oh
like that are
man.
really special.
I believe that. And then I'm just gonna, before we move on to the questions, we end our show with questions. The one thing that I'm always surprised at from being in the world of the TV is that people always thought that you were on a real boat, even when you were on the studio lot. I mean, because I love the show, but it was the most fake
I know.
looking Lido deck
I
ever.
know.
Isn't that weird? Do people still come up to you wanting to know if you shot every
Always.
show on a boat? Yeah.
Always. Always. Were you in a studio or were you on the real ship? And the great thing is I can say we were both, and you can sure tell the difference.
You
It
sure
ain't hard.
can.
The
Right.
wind blowing when, you see everybody's like, that's on the real ship. When the hair's perfect and they're out on the deck in front of the fantail having a moment at the railing, it's
Yeah,
in
and
the
the big
studio.
process is happening behind
Yes.
you, yeah, all that
Yes.
stuff. Well,
Yes.
that's thank you for answering all of those stupid super fan questions. Because again,
My
you
pleasure.
forget when you're watching when you're a kid. Yeah, I was on the show, but I watched it more episodes than I was in, and I watched it
Yeah.
every week. It was Saturday. You'd watch Love Boat and Fantasy Island.
Yeah. Same with yours.
Thank you. We'll be back after these messages. Hey there, my name is Patrick Labyorteaux, and I play an actor on TV. And I also have this acting school called Working Actors School. And what we do there is we teach people to act using Zoom. So you can take an acting class with me and with a person in Connecticut, in Florida, and San Diego all at the same time, thanks to the miracle of Zoom. And besides classes, I also offer a one-on-one session. It's an hour just between you and me working on a particular piece of material, whether it's for an upcoming audition or maybe you're working on something and you need to have that breakthrough moment. These are really, really fun, and they're really, really great because they're really personalized and intense in all the good ways that intense can be. So if you're working on something, if you want to break through, if you want to have a one-on-one session where you're not working with other people, this is the way to do it. All the information is in the classes page on workingactorsschool.com. Act 4, questions. Okay, so we're going to move on into the questions.
Okay.
These are really easy because they're all about you. You'll know everything. So I think we've talked a lot about this, but let's go with the first one. Is called That's SheauxBiz. And that is, what do you consider the most Hollywood moment of your life?
My word. I think probably, well, the first thing that comes to mind is we presented at the Emmys. Not that we were ever given one or nominated for one. We were too lowbrow for that. But
Right.
we as a cast got to get up and present an Emmy, and whoever won, didn't show up. And I was the youngest cast member, and nobody said anything. Everybody's just like, "Oh, is so and so here?" And no, they're not here. And I actually went to the microphone and said, "So and so couldn't be here this evening, so we accept the Emmy in his honor." I guess I mean, I don't know if that's the most Hollywood moment, but that's just the first thing that came into my
That's a
head.
pretty
So
Hollywood moment. I gotta
yeah,
go with that.
yeah,
And then,
it'll
okay,
work.
that's SheauxBiz part 2. What's the most embarrassing Hollywood moment?
Oh my God, I have to pick one. Um, Growing up, going through puberty in front of God and everybody. Um, oh God, this happened just the other day. I was I work for Princess Cruises as a brand ambassador, and somebody came up with a camera, and I thought they wanted to take my picture. They actually wanted me to take the picture of he and his wife. There's that. I don't know. Oh my God. Being on stage and it's not a Hollywood moment, it's more of a theater moment, and people forgetting their lines, me feeding them their lines and saying, nope, that's not it. Um, um, I mean, there's so many, having to
Well, I
kiss
gotta say,
somebody on camera.
yeah, there you go. Growing up and having it all on camera has got to be, I think,
Thank God
it's a
there was
tough
no
one,
internet when we were growing up. Thank
right? I
God.
mean, I hear that.
Melissa
Okay,
Gilbert and
so
I have talked about that. Thank
that's
God. Yeah. Yep.
um, Sheaux Me The Money. So, what's the biggest financial opportunity that you missed? I'm not looking for numbers. I don't want to hear how many dollars, but like in Hollywood, there's always kind of crazy opportunities. What would be your missed financial one?
um, I'm going to change that question because I don't know the answer to that. But what I will
Okay.
say is, the bungled ones was my first husband and my business manager. Yeah, who did very well
Oh
by me.
no.
Yes, who did
Oh
very well by me.
no.
That's all right. You live in your
Well,
lane. You live in your
part
lane.
of part of life, baby.
It
Okay.
is.
Show and tell. As a teenager, favorite poster in your room and how did you come to obtain it?
Oh, favorite. As a teenager. Okay, preteen. It was um, the Bay City Rollers. That was preteen.
SATURDAY.
DAY night. Hey,
Night.
Derek, I'm looking at you. Um, but as a teenager, I probably, oh God, this is so embarrassing, Patrick. I'm such a nerd. It was probably like a picture of Princess Diana or,
Well, that's sweet. Of course.
yeah,
Yeah.
probably that.
Princess Di. Okay.
Yeah, and a Gone with the
Great.
Wind poster.
And
Yeah.
just back in the day, I remember it. People don't get it now because everything's off Amazon. Do you get them at like a poster shop or at the
Oh
mall or
yeah,
where do
in
you get
in
it? Yeah.
Hollywood.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
exactly.
and I had a 8x10 of Harrison Ford that was signed, and that was my prized possession.
So there was somebody that would be like that clicked you in like, oh, he's pretty cool, that Harrison
Oh,
Ford guy.
hello, Star Wars. Yeah, and our first one of our second ADs, second assistant directors, her name was Vicki.
Uh-huh.
She had worked with him on something, and I just kept hounding her. Please get me. Can I meet him? Can I get an autograph picture? Can I put? Finally, one day she came in with one, so that was like yes.
You know,
I
I
still
missed
have
an
it.
opportunity here. This is, I was going to say, was there a young Jill always pestering Aaron Spelling about getting Harrison Ford for the Love Boat? But then
Oh
I
my
thought,
God, I
well,
should have.
what was it like working? I mean, Aaron
That's my
Spelling
missed
himself is a
opportunity.
legend. Missed
Yeah,
opportunity. Okay,
that's it.
great. What was it like working with Aaron Spelling, though? I mean, here's the literally, like we joked about it, but it was called Aaron's Broadcasting Company. He had so many shows. What
He was
did,
lovely. He was lovely to me. Absolutely lovely. I will leave you with this one little story. Um, when Aaron was very, very young, he and his family were very, very poor, and they lived in Texas. I mean,
Mhm.
extremely poor, like not being able to have dinner poor. They lived above a bakery, so the baker took uh, pity on them and would bring up all of the unsold items from that day to them. So at least he knew they were having something to eat. So when I was on Love Boat, what do you at Christmas time? You have to. He's so generous, but we have to give him a Christmas present too. What do you give them?
Right.
What do you give a billionaire who's got the largest private home in the world, other than Buckingham Palace at the time? Well, the only thing we could do was make something. So my mom and I would bake chocolate chip cookies, and we would make hundreds of them. And my mom would sew a huge life size, the size of me, stocking, and we would fill it with chocolate chip cookies and lemon bars and grasshopper bars and all these things, brownies, things that we would make from scratch, thumbprint cookies, sugar cookies, and we would present it to his office. And he was always so gracious and lovely. And it wasn't until I read his autobiography many, many years later that I realized the story about him growing up so poor and having these baked goods as his sustenance when he was a kid, that he hated sugary baked goods because all it reminded him of was how poor he was. So he didn't eat them.
Oh no.
So
The
he was always
sweetest gift, literally. Oh my
so
God.
gracious. He was so gracious. He never let on with that. Never, 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 never. But I adored him, and he was lovely to me. Really, really lovely.
That's wonderful. Okay,
Yep,
so two questions and I'll let you go. You've been really great with your time. Thank you.
sure.
So Showdown, what's the best thing you've ever done professionally and the worst thing you've ever did?
Oh, well, the worst thing,
You're
there's
yeah.
tons of that, but the things the things that I'm most proud of besides, and I am proud of Love Boat. I am. I'm also proud of Airplane. I'm proud of the thing that I did with Martin Sheen called Babies Having Babies. That was pretty awesome. Um,
Is
and
Claudia
I,
Wells in that one?
yeah, yeah,
I
and
know that.
Akusawa
Yeah.
Busia
That's
from
right.
Color Purple.
Uh-huh.
Um, I mean, there's lots of I, God, the things that I'm most proud of have nothing to do with acting. It's probably my kids, but
No, of course. That's why it has to be in the acting because it's like
yeah.
you can't compare childbirth to, a good scene.
Well, it depends on how good the scene is. Um, you know what? I'm proud of a lot of things, but I don't really think about it that much. But I will say that when people bring up Airplane, I'm always like, that's so cool that I got to be a part of that. So I guess that's
That's a
probably
good
it.
one.
Yeah.
That's a really good answer. Okay, and then
Yeah.
finally, show me some love. What's your favorite performance of mine?
Well, first of all, I think in Little House on the Prairie, I mean, you guys were all so good, so good, so good. It was your body of actors in Little House were really a fine, fine group of actors. And I know,
I can agree
it's
completely outside of myself. I totally agree with that.
no, it was you guys were really top notch. on that show, and everybody knew it. You were fine actors. So I would have to say, for me, what I know, I'm going to say Little House, because that was such a huge part of my childhood. Um,
And that's the fun thing about Hollywood. I love it. I love that, you got to watch our show. I certainly watched all of your shows. And, wrapping this up, I just want to say, as one actor to another, and having been a child actor, you were placed in so many potentially awkward situations, which you gracefully
you too.
navigated. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But, just talking with you, like the amount of people that you worked with, the amount of interaction that you had with people, there's so many ways it could have gone bad if you weren't in the right head. And you've done amazing work. So thank
Oh,
you so
thank you.
much for participating, and
My
really
pleasure.
great to catch up.
Let's take a moment and say how grateful we are for our families that kept our heads on straight.
Absolutely true. Outside of the camera area, you've
Yeah.
got your crew, but it's got to be, the parents on set. And in fact, Glenn was the guy that said, he goes, I think, the kids that didn't want to be in the business were the ones that had the most
Yes.
difficulty. And as
Yes.
you've said, you
Yeah.
wanted it, which is
Yeah.
a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah. That is true. Well, this has been a pleasure. I'm so glad to see you. How fun was this?
This was really great. You were wonderful. Thank you so much, Joe Whelan. I
Oh,
appreciate it.
thank you very much. Good to see you.
It's the Patrick Labyorteaux, Patrick Labyorteaux. He's the one you gotta know.
Hey, everybody, thanks for listening. I'm really, really glad you're here and checking out the podcast. It is an audio podcast wherever you get your podcasts. It's a video podcast over on YouTube or on Spotify or wherever you get the video ones. All of my socials are Working Actors School on TikTok, on Instagram, and on YouTube. Please check us out. If you want any information about the school, it is at workingactorsschool.com. We've got classes going on all the time. And again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
It's the Patrick Labyorteaux, Patrick Labyorteaux. He's the one you gotta know.